We're back now with that breaking news on the reports that a U.S. fighter jet has been downed over Iran. A U.S. official now telling MS Now the U.S. military is conducting a search operation for an American pilot inside Iran. It's not clear if the pilot's plane was shot down or went down. I want to bring back into our conversation MS Now senior national security reporter David Rohde, former CIA officer and MS Now national security analyst Mark Polymeropoulos. Also with me, retired Lieutenant General Steph Twitty, an MS Now military analyst. General, thank you for joining our conversation. David, I want to go right to you, though, because you've been working the phones in the minutes since you've been off the air. What more have you learned?
So, yes, a U.S. official confirmed that the U.S. military is conducting a search operation for an American pilot inside Iran. Initial details are very limited at this point. It's not clear what type of plane. It's not clear whether the plane was shot down. Iranian officials have claimed they shot down a plane, or it could have possibly gone down due to mechanical difficulties. The general and Mark can talk about more, but there's an extensive protocol and whole teams that are assigned to get in and rescue pilots when this happens. The pilots normally have some kind of communications once they even land on the ground to communicate with other planes above them to try to get rescued. But we just, don't know what's happening here, just that we've confirmed an operation is underway to find a U.S. pilot somewhere inside Iran.
So, General, pick up on what David is talking about here, that there is preparation for this kind of a circumstance. What might it look like?
Well, this becomes a more complex operation because, remember, we do not have U.S. troops, U.S. forces on the ground in Iran. And normally when you have U.S. forces on the ground in Iran, depending on where the pilot goes down, we normally contact the ground force commander in that area to go and assist in the search and rescue efforts. In this case, because we don't have U.S. forces on the ground, there is a contingency team on standby, search and rescue team, always on standby, either afloat or somewhere in close proximity in another country, ready to go. And it sounds like to me they've already launched to conduct search and rescue efforts. The pilots, when they go down, they'll normally have beacons, they'll normally have flares, they'll have limited food in some cases, and they're well trained at escape and evasion operations. And so hopefully these pilots have not been captured. I want to take you back to Iraq in 2003 when some of our pilots were shot down. They were paraded through Baghdad, propaganda. And so we don't want that to happen. We want to quickly get in, find these pilots, and get out.
Mark, the general is talking about the lack of assets on the ground, but you do have to wonder, do we have intelligence assets on the ground in Iran?
Well, the answer is yes. And, of course, the intelligence community is not going to talk about this. But prior to any types of conflicts like this, the United States, of course, working with our partners too, in this case, the Israelis, would have set up networks and, for specifically this contingency, which is non-assisted recovery. And so, you would assume that that is all kicked in. And the second an aircraft goes down and there's potential for pilots to be rescued, the entire kind of intelligence ecosystem is going to kick into gear. And so all types of human intelligence, signals intelligence, imagery is going to be tasked. This is now the number one concern for the U.S. national security enterprise, is rescuing these pilots.
Yeah, and again, we don't know how this jet ultimately went down, but I think one of the things that you and I were talking about in our short break was the escalatory language that we've heard from the president, the targets that we've seen chosen in recent days. I mean, even going back 5 weeks ago, the bombing of an Iranian school for girls sent shockwaves really through the geopolitical sphere. And yet we've also seen the U.S. targeting bridges. And I think that the mindset of the administration has seemed to be, from all the reporting we've seen, is that they thought that they would strike with power and the Iranians would back down. And if it ends up that this is a jet that was taken down, what does that tell you about what this looks like going forward, as they're saying we're going to bomb them into the Stone Age?
So that comment that President Trump made the other night, and of course Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, echoed that in a tweet or in a posting on X. And I think he just wrote, to the Stone Ages or something like that. That caused a bit of concern. There's the issue of, well, hold on a second. Is this going to be potentially the U.S. potentially committing war crimes? But, hitting a bridge like we did yesterday, I mean, there are legitimate reasons to do that. That could be a military target. But you do wonder what the Iranian response would be. And we saw today, in fact, that they hit a desalinization plant in Kuwait. That's what they promised to do. If we're going to go after their infrastructure targets, they're going to go after infrastructure targets in the Gulf. And that is, of course, incredibly escalatory. Last piece on this, Ali, is, if we are trying to, in some ways, foment regime change, and I think that's in the back of everyone's mind.
Right.
Taking out infrastructure targets is not necessarily the way to win the hearts and minds of Iranians. And, there's no polling that we can do right now. Presumably, the Iranian, not just the opposition, but actual Iranians welcomed this U.S. move from the beginning because they detest the regime. But if we start taking out infrastructure targets, making their lives, miserable, I think I do have some question on that. Is that actually the right move to take? And that language used, bomb back to the Stone Age, is not helpful.
Yeah. General, I wonder if we can continue jumping off of Mark's point there. We are, of course, going to continue tracking the situation with the downed U.S. fighter jet. But I wonder if you can look at the conflict writ large and compare what we're seeing as an escalation on the ground and a continuation of fighting there, bombing and whatnot, but then also the administration that is continuing to say that we're nearing the end of this conflict without actually laying out what the metrics for success look like or what the specific off-ramp even is.
Yeah, and I can even go further. What you don't want to do is make more enemies. And as we talk about bombing back to the Stone Age, we must remember if we want regime change, we want people on our side to help facilitate that. And whenever you bomb infrastructure, whenever you talk in a bellicose way, you're making more enemies. And so the key is professionally get in there, strike your targets, go after the strategic targets that's going to allow you to win this campaign. In this case, I'll take you back to the downed aircraft. We said that we destroyed all their air defense capability. Now, this aircraft could have gone down for maintenance reasons. It could have gone down for whatever. But it appears to me that it has been shot down. I don't know that to be fact, but that tells you that the Iranians, they still have capability out there to be able to strike our forces that are going in harm's way. And so we got to make sure that when we do these type operations, that they're professional in nature and that we go after targets that are intended to get after our strategic goals. In my mind, the strategic goals are we still got to defeat the ballistic missile systems inside of Iran. If we don't ever do that, then they'll continue to harm us. We have to defeat the drones. As you know, they have plenty of drones in Iran. I do not think we've done a good job at this point of destroying the drone capabilities. So we have to continue to go after those. And then the nuclear capability, we haven't talked about that lately. And we don't know where we stand there. That's the third strategic objective that I think if we're going to execute this war, we have to be focused on. And
again,
then
I think
finally...
Yes, continue. Go ahead.
Finally, in the discussion of regime change, in my mind, that should be in the hands of the Iranian people, not us. Let's focus on what we need to focus on and let the Iranian people decide their future.
And my apologies for interrupting you, but I think that the clarity with which you put forward those different metrics is the sort of clarity that people, for instance, on Capitol Hill are asking for from the administration. And as conversations around, is this regime change, where is the conversation around nuclear, have faded in and out of the conversation, I think it only lends to a muddier view of what the administration's goals are in this conflict, even as what Mark points out is true, which is that debilitating the Iranian regime is not something I've heard anyone here in Washington or the foreign policy apparatus quarrel with. And yet it's how you do it that is the larger looming question. We're going to keep following all of these threads. David, I know you're going to keep reporting. David, Mark, and retired Lieutenant General Steph Twitty, thank you all for staying with us.